Our next guest is hoping to fill Cuomo's shoes as the state's next Attorney General. Erik Dinallo is the former New York insurance superintendent. He's here with us this morning in the newsroom. Erik, you've got a big job that you want to take over. Let's talk about this investigation of Andrew Cuomo's. If you become AG, you're going to have to take it over. A, do you support it? And B, do you think that's the right priority for the New York AG right now with all that we've seen during the financial crisis?
Yeah, I think that someone really has to dig into the relationship of the rating agencies and the banks. I've published about this before, and it's very similar to the cases that I did at the Attorney General's office with the research analyst cases, where the analysts were out there saying the stock was a great thing, and privately they were calling it, you know, a piece of something and worse. And it absolutely needs to be reconciled. The investors of this country, the regulators of this country, need rating agencies that are viewed as independent. They need sort of the consumer reports of credit rating. Otherwise, the whole system is not going to get off the ground if no one has faith in the ratings.
Erik, why is this a matter for the New York Attorney General? Why shouldn't the SEC be pursuing this, or perhaps another federal organization? Because you're running for a state office, yet so many of the firms most important to New York are regulated federally. How do you reconcile?
Well, I think the AG's office, look, the AG's office role is to step in where other regulators basically don't go, or they get captured, or they're not getting the investigation.
So the SEC is falling short here.
Well, I think the SEC had to, and maybe in the new regime they will do something about it, but they needed to take more seriously their regulatory authority. They were over the rating agencies as an SRO, and they, I don't think, did a fantastic job. The results speak for that, and I think the AG's office is the right place to go in and make sure, like we did with the research analysts in the equities area, that there are no undisclosed conflicts of interest.
I want to go back to this point that you were talking about with the ratings agencies and Cuomo's investigation. I mean, Wall Street misled the ratings agencies. Doesn't this somehow almost give the ratings agencies a free pass here? Don't you think it's time to be more aggressive on them?
Yeah, I think their view is that somehow they were fed by the banks, but their role should have been a more independent, vigorous role. They're the third-party controls on financial products and the ratings of those products, both in the insurance industry and the securities industry. So I think that what I support is a total look at this, an investigative and then a policy solution that is something along the road of having independently funded rating agencies. Should they be scrapped
altogether and let investors do their own due diligence?
I think issuer-paid ratings without some kind of independent check on it should be scrapped. It doesn't work. It's led to the worst biases, and it's led to how you ended up with AAA ratings that were clearly junk.
Erik, you just said that it is the job of the New York Attorney General to step in where other regulators don't. Where else in your mind has the SEC, or the Fed for that matter, or another regulator failed to act, and where you, as Attorney General, would take action?
Well, I think we have to wait to see how the financial reform comes out, but I've always been a big proponent of better oversight on credit default swaps and derivatives. There's a whole swath of financial products that are really replication of core financial products without adequate capital, whether it's in securities, in insurance. These are sort of pseudo-insurance, pseudo-securities, pseudo-futures. The Commodities Futures Modernization Act permitted Wall Street to run wild with this stuff, and I think those are areas that have to be looked at because, I want to finish, because those used to be regulated by the states, and Congress took that regulatory oversight away, and if it has to be done by enforcement, then it has to be done by enforcement.
Okay, enforcement is one thing, but regulation is another thing.
Yes.
Credit default swaps, for example. Angela Merkel, the German chancellor,
Yes.
just banning today naked credit default swap positions.
Okay.
Do you support
that?
Well,
look, I actually think there's an excellent argument that they used to be banned. They used to be banned under the bucket shop laws of New York and Massachusetts and Illinois. That ban was taken away by Congress in 2000 in the Commodities Futures Modernization Act. That used to be viewed as illegal gambling on securities. That's what the point of the bucket shop laws.
Is it?
Well, it was. Now it's been made legal. All that Germany has done is gone back a mere decade, only 8 or 10 years, and put back in place laws that were there. I think we have to take a serious look at that.
We should do the same thing.
We should at least look at either banning them or making them have the right capital behind them. Because if what they really are just a pseudo-future or a pseudo-gambling instrument, we used to have regulations that required adequate capital to do that kind of activity, and now we do not.